if you could find that opportunity for sunshine and like what you brought to the table or how you got these horses to the track or, you know, how you supported these farms and these dreams. Cause like everyone in Kentucky is just a big dreamer.
Welcome to Unhinged and On Call, where the pets are unpredictable, the clients are intense, and the stories are wilder than a Jack Russell on espresso. I'm Chelsea, your resident veterinarian with a front row seat to the chaos.
And I'm Trish, a registered vet tech and expert in surviving the madness with a syringe in one hand and snacks in the other. We're here to share the wonderful, weird, and downright unhinged realities of life in vet med. So grab your stethoscope and maybe a drink, because let's face it, this field will break your heart, heal your soul, and then try to bite you all before lunch.
Buckle up for some chaos and a whole lot of support for the folks riding this emotional roller coaster right along with us, because these vet truck confessions are about to get wild. Hey guys, welcome to Unhinged and On Call.
I wasn't going to say anything. I was just going to. Hello.
Trish, how are you doing today?
I'm doing fantastic. How are you?
Fantastic.
Yeah.
I'm doing very well.
Good.
Thank you.
Good.
Yeah. So we're just getting past Memorial Day weekend. I was on call over the weekend and had an interesting thing come up. And it's just crazy how we were just talking about this actually, but fixing your fencing and horses getting out on the road. I was finishing up a clinic on my horse, just maybe 10 minutes away. And luckily on my watch, I get alerts and I can see what my answering service pages me. And I look down and I'm on my horse and it says fire department, like it's from fire department, which is an instant. There are a few emergencies that we like drop everything for. Mm-hmm. And that is foaling, essentially, and just trauma accidents that get called in by animal control or fire or police departments. And you drop everything and you run. So I literally jumped off my horse before I even answered the page. We have to respond and say that we got it. Before we even answer that, I literally threw my horse at someone, got in the car. I was wearing,
oh my God,
took off my helmet, obviously. I was wearing my tall boots, so I looked ridiculous.
Oh, but you're fancy.
But that's not the look I was going for. And and luckily I called this client that was behind. She had paged in also. She was 3 cars behind this when it happened on I-25. So we're north of Denver on the major highway that runs through Denver. So it's always like, there's not a time where there's not a million cars on I-25 now. And so what had happened is this trailer's back door had popped open.
Oh no.
And this miniature horse was in like a box stall. It was a stock trailer, wasn't tied. And my client saw this happen like 3 cars back. And luckily everyone saw the door pop open, so they gave it space and braked. But the trailer is going 70 miles an hour. Oh. And this miniature horse, so like 200 pounds and so cute, jumps out of the back of the trailer.
Stop.
Which is just insanity. Most animals won't do that, but it must have been freaked out enough.
Yeah, he just bolted.
Yes. Oh. And so anyways, I get there and fire department's already there. There's like 20 first responders. And they're trying to hold her down because she's starting to scramble and get up. And so I give it sedation first, and they have the entire southbound I-25 closed off.
Oh my gosh.
And so I get the sedation in her, and then I start talking to the owner. And they didn't see it happen. And they didn't even see the back door open because when, the wind is pushing it straight. So like they were almost another exit in front. And they had to get the trailer escorted to come back. And it had another horse in it, an older horse. And unfortunately, the girl, and you could tell there were some like pre-existing conditions, but the girl at that point, there was blood everywhere and there was too much like trauma.
Oh my God.
Her little Minnie.
Oh, no.
So this poor girl, she's like 20 years old and so sweet and probably worst day of her life.
Terrified. She's probably terrified. Oh my gosh.
And she, I think, made probably the best decision for her, but we let her go there and then got her back on her trailer. But it was crazy because there were so many people there. And then there was like 2 other accidents at the same time in a half-mile radius. Because when I came around, I was speeding fast.
Yeah.
Because they told me fire department was already there.
Right.
And they were struggling to keep her down.
Oh my gosh.
And can you imagine if she had just been like loose on the highway?
No.
And so it was nuts. But we got her back in pretty quickly. Everyone was super helpful and, like got it taken care of. And then we latch the door up super well because it obviously needs to get fixed. But just what an awful day. But the fact that there were so many people there just to support her and like do the right thing. And then she was very sweet. I even followed up with me by email, but I didn't charge her. It's just like the worst thing I could ever.
Goodness.
But it just is one of those things where you're like, how could you prevent? I mean, it was a nice enough trailer. It just, the freaking door popped open.
It was just a bad day.
Yeah.
It's just a really bad day. Oh my gosh.
But yeah, I had just small world, but I had friends drive by and they saw my truck in the middle of all that. And they were worried that it was like an accident with me.
Yeah, that you were involved or something.
But yeah, that was a first in 14 years I've been out. Is being on I-25, like shut down the
That's
highway
terrifying
for an animal.
That's so scary.
And then the fire department came up to me after, and they carry meds, EMTs and all that carry meds. And there's, I think, usually one or two people, I don't know a lot about this, but on the fire department that have access to drugs, controlled substances.
Right.
And so he asked for my card and he said, sometimes we have like a full-size horses that we, like have been involved in trailer accidents. So I gave him my card and I was like, well, we're close to here if you're, if you're ever in that situation.
Oh, wow. Yeah.
And then they said that they can actually, if I give them a medical directive, they can call me and I can give them medication, like dosing and all that.
Really?
Because they're on site and they have these.
They're
meds.
there.
They don't
time
know how
is
to
of the
use
essence
them.
sometimes, right?
Yeah.
It's like.
But I couldn't even imagine if that was an adult horse getting that thing, 1,200 pounds, getting it back into a trailer doing something. So, all in such a awful tragedy, all the things lined up to be.
Thank goodness that you could get there quickly too.
Oh God, like I need lights and sirens. I was like,
seriously,
I was pushing the limits.
Yeah.
It sounded bad. Obviously, it sounded bad, but then also just like everybody waiting for me to
for
get
you
there.
to get there. Yeah, that's so much pressure.
So I like to go fast, but I was flying. I was I should probably. So I had my hazards on, but I was like going through construction zones and stuff like that without workers, but like pretty darn fast.
You count on Dr. Chelsea.
It was an adrenaline rush. And it's just crazy that stuff like that happens. But
I'm so sorry for everybody, right? You, the owner, just people and fire department, just it's such a hard situation to be in.
And there's stuff like that all the time because cars are not the best. I mean, you see what cars do with semis, like cut in front of them. Like horse trailer accidents happen all the time. And you really can't prevent things like that happening and the animals getting out.
No.
I mean,
drive far behind horse trailers on the highway. If you're not a horse person.
That's right.
Give room. Give them room and go slow around them and passing.
Be obvious.
And don't cut them off in front of them.
Yeah. It should be obvious.
Yeah, I know.
But you kind of have to have signage on your trailer to be like, don't tailgate. Like we can't stop very quickly.
Seriously.
But I have people cut me off all the time.
That's insane.
In my rig. It's crazy.
My gosh.
Yeah.
So did you go back to your?
Oh well, yeah. I had to put.
You had to go back to the show, but you had showed already, right?
Or it was a clinic, so I was riding, and it was
ridden.
Luckily that where I'm at, the barn manager and owner is fantastic, so they helped put my horse stuff, like my horse away in his pen,
right?
And then I came back and like put stuff away, but yeah. That's just
my gosh. How do you go back to normal things after you're like, well, here I am back in
and then it's just
after
weird.
I was just on the highway.
Then it's just weird.
Your adrenaline and everything.
Adrenaline, for sure.
Oh my gosh.
And that was after a 1 a.m. colic too. So it was just like,
what the heck?
Quite a day.
I didn't talk to you all weekend.
No. There's probably a reason. I was like holed up and on call land.
There's a lot going on.
Putting out fires.
Yeah. Oh my God. Well, you're a complete hero.
Yeah. Well, I don't know about that.
It's true.
But I get 2.5 weeks off till my next on call.
Heck
shift.
yeah.
The nice thing about group practice.
Yeah.
Well, the weekend I would do weekdays, of course, but yeah, we get
self-care
share
mode.
Call. Yes, sharing call is amazing.
That's great.
Yes.
Thank God.
Yes.
Oh man.
Well, today we have a great guest for you. Her name is Dr. Casey Cromer. She's a representative technical services veterinarian from Boehringer Ingelheim, which is a big pharmaceutical company. And what we love about BI as an equine vet is that they put a lot of money into development and support of equine veterinarians as well as pharmaceutical drugs in the equine space, which is not, I guess it's a bit surprising to me, but it's not a huge target for most pharmaceutical companies. And they support us. Our rep is awesome. And And then Dr. Casey Cromer covers a lot of the US. So we're super, super happy to have her with us today and excited to talk to her. So stay tuned.
This episode is brought to you by our friends at VetCS, your go-to for veterinarian-developed CBD and wellness products for pets and horses. Founded by veterinary professionals, VetCS offers science-backed formulas made with premium hemp extracts to support calm behavior, joint health, and overall wellness, whether you're in the clinic or out at the barn. VetCS is all about helping animals live better naturally. Want to see what they're all about? Head over to vetcs.com to explore their full line of CBD products.
Well, Dr. Cromer, thank you for joining us today. We're so excited to hear about your stories in practice. So Casey and I met probably 3 years ago now. Is that right?
Yeah.
And I moved out to Colorado. And you were initially north of Denver. And so I got to meet your lovely horses and work with you there. And
air quotes.
They are. But
appreciate
ever
that.
ever since you've been supporting our practice and just kind of equine veterinary medicine. So we're so happy to have you on.
Yeah, no, I'm really excited to be here. I think it's gonna be a blast because we need to talk about this kind of stuff more. So,
yes,
agreed.
What Chelsea neglected to say is that I was that horse owner that like called you 3 times. Like, SOS, my horse is lame. This is an emergency. I'm an adult amateur in intro dressage. Like, help. I forgot that part.
I need you today. Yeah. No, you were never. No, you never did that.
Better than me. I used to call her and be like, I have a problem. Like, just, a little more tears if I needed her. So it sounds a little better.
I don't know. Bryce was like, my husband was like, you're being very high maintenance. I'm like, I ride dressage. What do you want? I'm very high maintenance.
It comes with the territory. Yeah.
It comes with the territory. But no, it'll be fun.
Yeah. Yeah. Good. And you tell us about school and where you went and all the fun stuff.
So kind of an interesting, it's funny, living in Colorado now, so close to the Air Force Base, when I tell my story, they're like, Army. And I'm like, veterinarian. Right? Because this chapter has taken me to a lot of different places. So I was actually born and raised in Indiana, did my undergrad at Purdue, pretty much all but declared that I was going to Purdue for vet school. And then Cornell called me to say that, I had been lifted off the loser list and could come join them. And I was like,
yeah, you're a badass.
Seriously,
Cornell,
gosh, amazing.
Top vet school in the country.
Amazing.
I was a hillbilly, so that was a growth. There was a lot of growth that happened from Southern Indiana to Cornell. But
I love that for you.
Yeah, thanks.
Yeah.
But went to Cornell really because the decision just scared the bananas out of me to get out of the Midwest, move to the East Coast, and go to a school with all of them are great schools, but Cornell was something that I had definitely always dreamed about going to. So we literally packed up everything sight unseen and moved to New York for 4 years, where I really then drank the Kool-Aid and fell in love with the thoroughbred industry and all things Kentucky and horse racing. So spent pretty much every free moment in Lexington, Kentucky or Saratoga Springs, New York, doing that deal and met an amazing mentor, which we should definitely have her on the show, Mariah Snowbrick.
Really?
Yes, she is. Oh my God, such a shining light for the industry and being a successful, badass woman in all things. So,
we would love to have her.
Yeah. Oh, I'll tell her. She's one of my heroes. So she convinced me to come and step into more repro role, which I hadn't really thought too much about Therio, obviously in the thoroughbred side of things. Thought it was going to be a lot of sports medicine and lameness, but really loved being an advocate for the mares, because I think that side of the industry can be a little lost with the glamour of all of the colts and the stallions. So did that for 2 years, was a resident vet my second year in Kentucky during COVID. Yeah, so that's where I got Manny Cans. He never really made it to the track.
Okay.
And so after that, just kind of had a heart-to-heart with my mentors about what life would look like staying in Lexington, Kentucky, and ultimately made the choice that, I wanted a little bit different of a lifestyle. Learned so much in 2 years, but wanted a little bit, I wanted to be a horse girl and a horse vet, and found another place that horses were so embedded in the culture in Aiken, South Carolina. So moved to a repro ambulatory practice in Aiken. And we had a huge deficit in specialists and referral centers. So with my background and how business savvy that particular practice owner was, we helped build that into from an ambulatory, really high level repro clinic into a referral center. So got learned how to build elective cases for surgeons and internists, and helped scrub in and do a lot of internist things to support that specialty team. And then in 2023, had a really unique opportunity from one of the PSVs I actually met from BI or Beringer, Dr. Scott Hancock. And we just got to talking one day, and, he was like, have you ever thought about industry? And I'm like, oh, well, I'm not a saleswoman. And he goes, well, that's not really what your role will be. Like, I took training techs and being a teammate or trying to be a good teammate for my comrade, my colleagues really seriously, and ended up, BI, that was one of their big missions, was having a vet team that supported the industry and veterinarians with really good products in good medicine. So now I'm on this side of the fence as an industry vet, and my region is the whole western third of the U.S. So
wow,
amazing!
Managed to move out to
Congratulations!
Colorado.
That is
thanks.
incredible.
The whole thing.
The whole thing.
Yes.
The whole thing's incredible.
I think we all go on a really cool journey. We just don't talk about it.
Right. That's correct. Yeah. It is. Yeah. And sometimes, and you learn and grow through it. Because I think namely, a lot of people listening probably don't know about what a resident veterinarian does, especially in thoroughbred country. But essentially, if you take the idea of having boundaries and like throw it in the trash, that is being a resident veterinarian. Like, you don't have boundaries. What this means is that the farm essentially employs you as a veterinarian, and so you're on staff for that farm. And I don't know, how many horses did you have under your care?
Oh man, that's when Shadwell was a powerhouse. I mean, we had stallions, retired horses, mares and foals, yearlings, weanlings, horses in training, horses in rehab. Like, it was everything. And I will say
it's almost like
it's constant,
too numerous to count. Like, you don't even know how many horses you're taking care of. Which is crazy.
And especially if you add in the the name. So all of the horses had Arabic names, and so that became really challenging to remember.
Yeah. Did you have like little nicknames, like you just to remember them? Because that's how I would have to do stuff. Like,
my manager,
just move on to the next.
The farm I was on, I was very, very privileged with the support staff that they had.
Yeah.
So every barn had dedicated staff, and then there were a plethora of managers. So thankfully, that team knew the horses, and I just tried to keep spreadsheets. And the glass half full approach to being a resident vet is like, the case follow-up is insane. Like, if you literally want to know how a horse is doing, you can just drive to barn 3 and like check on that foal with a fever or whatever, which is really nice. The downside, like Chelsea said, is it can be very hard to separate what is work and what is not. But the experience you gain doing that, I think the positions change, like everything in vet med, right? Like, the definitions and how that works out has changed. But I was so fortunate that farm, you got to work with some of the biggest names in the industry. Like, I worked directly under Dr. Riddle and all of the surgeons, and had a really close relationship with the internal team with the number of foals we were foaling out. And, we were still, numbers wise, definitely not the biggest farm, but it was, you learned a lot, like really good records and things. But it's tough. I mean, it's not for the faint of heart, but you learn a lot.
Yeah, that's incredible.
Well, I think for younger veterinarians going into it, I think that's the trade-off, right? And you might not have a family yet, and you might not have roots yet. And so you can learn a ton, probably like 5 times the length that you're there. But it is a high turnover thing. Even being a racehorse vet in general has a high burnout, because they race and the horses are training almost every day, really. For all intents and purposes. And it wears on you. So kudos to all the people doing racetrack medicine.
Shout out, guys.
Oh my gosh, absolutely. It's so tough, and it's such a beautiful breed. The people who are really in it, like, everybody knows the lingo and is talking about like the matings and how the progeny are doing. And one of my favorite things, the longer I was there, the more horses you got to be associated with. So going to Keeneland on the rare opportunity that you did to like catch a race, and you're like, oh my gosh, that was the yearling that I
Yeah.
did blah, blah, blah on.
Wow.
And then, you know, to see him run, you know, you talk about fulfillment. So if you took it was a good mental exercise on always trying to find the sunshine. You know, like you could do a really good job of finding the clouds, but if you could find that opportunity for sunshine and like what you brought to the table or how you got these horses to the track or, you know, how you supported these farms and these dreams. Cause like everyone in Kentucky is just a big dreamer. Like we all have big dreams when we go to
Yeah.
Lexington. So, that was
That's
cool.
true.
Speaking of which, this is
Yeah.
Carlin.
Yeah, I was
She's
going to
named
say,
after-
we need
Cute.
like a little introduction on our
gosh.
co-host here.
Yeah.
So
I
cute.
know. Yeah, he's
How
a
old
big
are we?
potato. He is 6 months, and he's named after. So we have a Zenyatta, and Zenyatta's rival was Curlin.
Oh,
So we have a Curlin.
he's a girl. Oh,
So
cute.
sweet.
Oh my
Yeah.
gosh.
Curly for short. His brother is also named after a racehorse. I don't know where he is, and that's Uncle Mo.
That is
He's so
cute.
calm.
Are they all dachshunds?
So calm.
Yeah,
You have
Zenyatta's
3
the white
dachshunds?
shepherd. No, Zenyatta's
Oh, no,
the
no,
shepherd
no.
that always
Okay.
barked at you.
Yeah. Okay.
Okay.
Yep.
I remember that one.
Yeah. That was her.
Oh
But
man.
That's cool.
Yeah.
Oh, he is so
So-
quiet for 6 months. He's like,
yeah, he's a big
Yeah.
couch potato.
yeah.
I have a
He's
9-month-old
adorable, that blue
bulldog, and
eye.
it is completely the opposite.
Oh, yeah.
Like,
That's what's so cool about dachshunds is they'll just like chill, or if you
So
want to be
sweet.
crazy,
Just
he'll be
chill.
crazy. But most of the time, he just likes
For
to
short
be
periods of time.
Yeah,
I love
exactly.
him. He's
Exactly.
adorable.
Yeah, exactly. But yeah, so we have a racehorse
Huh.
obsession. All of our cats are named after racehorses.
The cats too. I love it.
Yeah, we have
love it.
Ruffian, Arklow,
Oh, of
and
course.
Nyquist.
Oh man.
Do they fulfill their names when they get the zoomies?
Yeah, exactly right. Ruffian is definitely a ruffian. Like hindsight's 2020. Maybe shouldn't have named her Ruffian because she is. She's got some attitude. Yeah, Arklow. The
Manifested
other
that.
two,
Yeah.
no, they're not very.
No.
They're not very fast. They're metabolic athletes.
Yeah.
I love it.
That's fantastic.
Oh gosh.
Well, so the premise of our show is to basically just bring light to the things that happen and how crazy they can be. So if you wanted to share a story or two just about things that you remember in practice. Or in industry. I don't know.
Anytime.
Yeah, no, I think it's so funny when I told my mom and husband I was doing this, they're like, "Oh my gosh, you have so many stories." Like it just, you know, and then when you think about it, I'm sure every guest is the same. We're all like,
Yeah, you blank.
yeah,
What happened to
And
me?
Yeah.
started, you know, after a few bourbon drinks the other night, started reliving some of these stories. So,
They flow
It's-
out a little easier after
Yeah,
a
me
cocktail
yeah,
sometimes.
yeah,
That's what we
yeah.
found. Yeah.
yeah, truth, a little bit of truth serum. But the first one I'm actually going to tell at my husband's expense because I think we can get, and the reason I tell this story, one is effing hilarious, but also is because I think we forget this world that we're so, you know, intertwined with. It just becomes our vocabulary and kind of like our state of being, that when we bring other people into it, we're like,
From the
what?
outside.
Like, what?
Normal people.
Yeah. Yeah.
What are we doing?
Yeah.
So,
Yeah.
I hope you enjoy
So
this
true.
one. So this is when I was an intern, my first go around, and not a resident vet. So I was doing backup repro work, and that generally doesn't follow a 9 to 5, much like most of veterinary medicine. And this was it was either a 10 p.m. or like a 1 a.m. uterine post-breeding lavage. Like I think we had like the latest slot possible. And Bryce and I met during my internship year, and this was his first breeding season. And he like kind of thought he understood what I did. Like my first date, I like changed out of my coveralls, you know, at the date, you know, just to like give him. I held
You
nothing
put on
back.
regular clothes?
Yeah, regular clothes underneath the coveralls because of course on my way I got called to a colic. Like it never fails.
On your
Oh
first
my
date.
Yeah.
Like before your first date.
Yeah.
Yeah, and I told him I was running late, and he was like, "That was a red flag for me."
Oh, oh no.
Should have been a red flag, but you're married.
Get used to it, buddy.
I know, and I was like, "That was your moment to run."
Yeah.
Oh no.
So he gave me another chance because I looked cute online or something. I don't
Yeah.
remember what he said. And so we were going out to do a post-breeding lavage, and Bryce is like, "Oh, this is so cool. Like, I've never been on a thoroughbred farm." And like my inner circle that were veterinarians or at least related to the industry were like, how do you live in Lexington, Kentucky and find like the one guy who isn't in veterinary medicine, associated with a thoroughbred farm, or like into horses? You like found the one dude who's not horsey.
Difficult. Yeah.
Literally one dude. Yeah.
The one
He
dude.
is a unicorn in and itself.
Yes. If only you'd meet him. So true. So said dude comes onto the farm, and I'm like unloading all of this stuff, and I'm like walking him through, and I said, okay, you like, do you want to help, or you just like want to watch? And the assistant broodmare manager, who's one of my very best friends, was like, oh, he definitely needs to help, like, right, like kind of indoctrinate him into this crazy culture. And so this mare was a really good girl, she knew the drill, and thankfully like didn't pull any antics to like add to the hysteria. So I'm going through everything with Bryce, and we had these DMSO bags that were, kind of pre-made. So I got them out, and I was like, if you get this stuff on you, it's going to be really stinky. But basically, this mare was covered. I tried to use really generic terms to reduce any of the like 5th grade, sex ed questions about how all of this works. And like people were you know what I mean? Like you could just really go down a rabbit hole talking about the shed. So... to keep everything respectful, we didn't do that. So I was just like, this mare's been covered. Sometimes I get an inflammatory reaction. I'm here to make sure that doesn't happen. So like, we're helping the mare. And he's like, yeah, we're helping horses. I'm like, yeah. So after we like have this, powwow, and I talked to him about, try not to get anything on the floor, keep it sterile as much as possible, blah, blah, blah. I'm prepping the mare, and he's like kind of looking at me kind of funny. Like we tie her tail back, and I'm starting to, prep the perineal region, as they say. I don the sleeve, and he's...
This is his first thought.
I don the sleeve.
And I'm like, yeah, it's no big deal. And I'm like, put some lube on, And so he does, and I just, go into the position, and I'm like, and I have the tube, and I'm like, okay, inflate the cuff, blah, blah, blah. And I'm like, okay, now, like, remember where I showed you to take the hemostats off? I'm like, connect that to the tube. And he's just...
Okay.
And I'm like, Bryce, can you connect the tube? Like, yeah, I don't really want to be here all night.
No,
I'm very tired.
Arm is in her vagina.
We are actively doing something.
and he goes, looks at the front of the horse, looks at the back of the horse, looks at where my arm is, and he like walks the other side of the horse, like as if I've done a magic trick. And like my arm is like,
where's her?
He's like, I just have one question before we begin. I was like, oh, okay. Is this your red flag moment? And he goes, where exactly is your arm? And I'm like, it's in her vagina, and I'm holding her cervix. I'd appreciate it if you like put the lavage fluid on. And he goes,
like, I'm ready.
So he's like, we're lavaging her vagina? I was like, no, we're lavaging her uterus, dumbass.
Did you pass anatomy in sex ed?
Yeah, and he's just like holding on to her cervix. I'm like, yes, connect the bag. And so he connects the bag, and like he's doing it just like gravity. And I'm like, okay, you can press on the bag. Like again, like I don't want to be here all night. We have to do multiple bags. Like this is a mare who's foaled, and I'm like trying to tell him all the things, and he's like, but your arm's in her vagina. I was like, it is.
He's really trying to connect it here. Yeah.
Synapses are not firing. Like this farm manager, he's from France. And like to this day, we laugh about this, and he dying. And he's like, do you know how many times she stuck her arm up a vagina today? And Bryce is like,
yeah.
What do you do? Like, what is your job? Because I'm sure he told his family, like, I'm dating this doctor. She went to Cornell. It's an Ivy League. And now he actually sees, like, what I get paid to do.
What you do.
Yep, so we're lavaging it. And I'm like, okay, now drop the bag. And he takes this 5-liter bag and is just like, drops it. He's like, I'm done. And so there's, like, lavage fluid going everywhere. And I'm like, no,
my God.
You got to connect it. And he's like, I'm out. You drop the bag.
He couldn't do it?
So I'm like, you gotta pick up the bag. He picks up the bag, I kink it, and he connects it, and then it's all running through there. And then, of course, what runs back into the bag, right? Like all of this proteinaceous material, some might say.
Yep.
And he goes, well, what's that? And the farm manager is like, son, that's sperm. Bryce is just like traumatized. And I'm like, okay, another bag. And he's like, we have to do it again.
Yeah.
And I'm like, yeah, until she's clean. And then as a typical man, he goes, well, why is she dirty? And I'm like, because of you.
Because of all men.
Fault.
All men
Because
did this.
It's not our fault.
The male species.
So we like go through it and like do all the thing, and then we debrief, and like the mare was like, in hindsight, like of all of the mares to Lavage, thank God it was this mare who was just like munching on her hay, chilling with her butt sticking out of the stall.
Super quiet.
Yeah, because we were all laughing, and it like took forever and a year, probably the longest Lavage ever.
Sounds like it.
And Bryce gets into the car and he's like, when do we do that again? And I'm like, well, it's breeding season. We're going to do a lot of them. And for some reason, after all of that, that man went on every post-breeding lavage with me.
Seriously,
yay! Every single one.
Amazing. Did you turn to him when you're in the car and you're like, so you ready for dinner? Ready to go eat?
Let's go eat.
I'm ready. I'm hungry.
I know. So true. So
That's
true.
awesome. Well, props to him, because I'm pretty
that.
sure that my husband would have fainted. Possibly.
I was wondering if there's going to be puke or fainting.
Right.
No.
Right. Yeah.
He did good.
No,
he
did good. He did really good. And like the nasogastric tube was like the following day, and he was just like, wow, this is. So where's that? Where does that tube go?
We need to get him a scope so he can just
drive around.
Look, you can see where we are.
I know. So it's so funny. Like he's like the best assistant after that. So when I came to Aiken, I didn't have a tech for a long time, right? Because like I needed to make my own money for the clinic, and there's definitely a growth period, which is rightfully so, and also finding somebody, as I'm sure you both recognize, like we're paying
to be with. Yeah.
And so he even helped me with that, which leads me to. Oh yeah.
He teched with you in Aiken. That's amazing.
That's so cool. I love
hours.
That.
Mainly after hours, which was fun because I had this Jeep, I think it was a Wrangler, and I was just like bopping around like the South Carolina Bayou is what it felt like. Just
that's cool.
That's pretty
very different than Kentucky. But he wanted me to tell this story if we have time for another one.
Yes, we do.
This is his personal favorite.
Okay.
So this was probably, we had just moved on. Also, like starting practice and moving somewhere in the middle of COVID when the whole country's shut down was an excitement in and of itself. But so we knew no one, and we had just moved on to our little farm, which was, I'm being gracious when I say it's a barn, a barn-dominium. It was very much like a barn apartment that someone much richer than myself probably would have used as like a really nice tack room that we made. That had like a sink and a bathroom.
To me. Yeah.
A lot of life lived there. And that's what we had. Because the barn was perfect, so we bought the place because of the barn. But it was probably one of my first times being on call. And we also didn't have Wi-Fi out here. It was one of the first states I ever lived in where you didn't have great cell phone service, but there was also no Wi-Fi available where we were at in Aiken County. So everything had to be like cell boosted, or like we had to go into town to watch a football game. It was kind of mind blowing. So
it's kind of nice,
when I was
honestly,
2020
these days, except for
COVID.
During COVID. Yes. Maybe a different timeline.
Isolating. A lot of card games, ladies. A lot of card games.
Yeah.
But
no Wi-Fi in COVID. I actually can't process that. No Wi-Fi in COVID. I think that would have been really difficult.
Blacked out.
It was interesting. Yeah, we're a stronger couple because of it.
Yeah.
So I had this spot where this, because I had voiced some concerns with my boss at the time. I was like, listen, I don't know what my cell phone service is going to be like when I'm on call. Like, do we have an answering service, or like, how does that work? And she just kind of cackled, and she's like, no, we have an on-call phone. And at the time there were only 3 of us. So I'm pretty sure we just traded the phone back around at that point. Like we didn't, I don't think I had like my own associate phone. I can't remember. But anyway, so I had this spot that the on-call phone lived, and you couldn't really move from that spot. And then of course, like my boss could see like all of the phone calls. So if I missed something, she could text my personal phone and be like, hey, I think somebody called. Did you talk to them? It looks like they called a couple times or whatever. So we had like kind of a foolproof system. But it just starts ringing, and I answer it, and I hear, and I'm like,
spam.
I know. I'm like, this is Dr. Keith Cromer with blah, 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 blah. What's your emergency? Or like some stupid bullshit. And, cause I was like, I don't know what to say. Like, cause Rudy Riddle my previous clinic would just call me and be like, yo, you got an emergency. Or I would just get it from a farm manager, and they're like, hey, come to barn 6. So this idea of being my own answering service was a
Customer
little bit
service.
annoying.
Yeah, customer service. Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I didn't have any. And so they just hang up. And I'm like, do I call back? Do I let sleeping dogs lie? Like, what's... So Bryce is like, I don't know, call him back. And so I call him back, and I just hear, hey, Charlie, you get that horse up over there? And I'm like, what is this accent? Like, what is actually being said? And they're like, ma'am, you there? And I said, I'm here. Do you have an equine emergency? And he goes, you ever heard of that trick and get them horses up down by tickling them in their ears? And I was like,
What? What?
And I'm just like deer in headlights. And Bryce is like, put it on speaker. I need help. And I was like, oh, good. So I put it on speaker, and he goes, do you have an emergency? Like, says it like total mansplain voice.
Yeah.
And he goes, yeah, doctor, how you get them horses up and tickle in their ear when they're down and they're flopping? And Bryce is like, did you catch that? I did not
help,
catch
Bryce.
that. Did not help. And this guy is like, yeah, kick around the and is just like saying these things, which I've later learned to interpret is like the South Carolina, like kind of country accent, where it's not a Southern accent where you think about this and, you know, you got some time to process. And
not a long Southern drawl.
No, I mean, it was rapid fire. And he goes, do you know the trick for getting a down horse up by tickling its ears? And Bryce is like, do you know the trick? And like repeats it back to me because I was speechless. I was like,
how do you answer that question?
Right. Like, what?
And then I hear like
tickling its ears.
And it's like a gun range all of a sudden. And I was like, I'm pretty sure a gun isn't the way. And he goes, no, that's the boys in the back. Don't you worry about them. What's that trick? Do you know it?
Stop.
And I was like, and I was like, do you need a veterinarian? And he goes, no. Do you know the trick for getting horses up by tickling their ears?
Oh my god!
And I was like,
it sounds like he knows the trick.
Yeah, I'm like,
that's what I said.
Fingers
did he try the trick? It didn't work.
I don't understand.
And then he called it like process of elimination, right? Like,
yeah, and I said, well, what have you tried? And he goes, well, I hadn't tried yet because I didn't know what it was. And I was like,
what else would happen?
Like, yeah, and I'm like, sir, who? No. And then I was like, Bryce is like, ask who it is. And I was like, that's a good call.
Probably,
yeah, it's a great place to start. And he's like, where are they? And I'm like, God, why are you answering the phone? Like, I'm in this whole mess of this trick of tickling horses' ears to try and get them up. It sounds like you have a colic, or in my mind, something neurologic, right? Because like,
something bad.
Or maybe the horse
Name,
is just like
location.
Are you a client? Like really good questions that I just did not ask. And so I asked all of these things, and he was like, "No, I don't need a vet. You know, or sorry, I don't need a vet. I can't lose the accent now." And I was like, "Well, you could try just taking your fingers and tickling the ear." And he goes, "Don't you think I already tried that?" Click, and never heard from him again.
Why did he call? Oh my God.
Why did he call? So I called my boss, and I was like, listen. And I told her, because I didn't know anything about South Carolina, whether this was even in Aiken, county, because it's a pretty big county. And she always laughed at, like, if you get outside of like 15 minutes or whatever, everything changes. And it ends up like this was like way far away from us, like down by Charleston, like literally.
You wouldn't have gone. Yeah.
There are a number of reasons I wouldn't have gone. The location was my out.
There you go.
And she was just laughing, and she was like, welcome to South Carolina, honey.
Welcome.
Oh, man.
Wow.
It was
I
amazing.
just love it's like, don't worry about the boys in the back. You're like, okay. I won't.
Shooting shotguns. Like, it was literally like out of a Western film where you could hear, like, where you could hear it hitting, like, the tin thing, like they were shooting cups or something. And I was like, what are we doing? You got a down horse and you're just out shooting guns? Like, is the horse shot? Like, maybe that's why you can't tickle him up.
Yeah. No. I bet his wife was like, you got to go call the vet. And he didn't want to pay for a vet or something. And he's just like, I don't even know.
I was almost like, do you text, sir? Like, can you just text me what you want?
Can you put this in writing?
I can't understand you.
What is happening?
My God.
And if Bryce was here, he does this really fun, like, clap and stomp and dance thing. Like, he's got the whole, like, this man, wherever he is like a whole character in our minds that will never
amazing.
leave.
For sure.
You know,
That is
will never
amazing.
leave.
Oh,
and I'm just like, what, is the horse okay? Like,
yeah, right.
Did
Like,
you
you
get up?
don't get an answer.
just tell me
never-
how the animal is.
You're never gonna know.
No. And I do remember
Wow.
I asked my boss, I was like, do I call back? And she was like,
Right.
Let that lie. He doesn't want you out.
Yeah.
no. But I was like, do I know the trick about tickling horses' ears? So if you ladies know, I'd love to hear it, because I just know the, like, are you
I mean,
so
Dr.
sleepy?
Chelsea?
You just jam them in there and wake them up. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. I don't know.
Also,
You
I
gotta
feel like
try
gunshots
everything
would
when
have done
they're
the trick too. You know, like that would
yeah,
have.
typically if
you
they're
would think.
if there's a shot in hell that they're going to get up, they will get up when they hear guns.
Yeah.
I
That's
know.
wild.
Yeah. So it was
Wow.
fantastic. But those are.
We had 2 dairy farmers when I worked in Wisconsin, and unfortunately, they were one of our biggest clients. They're nicest people, whatever, but same exact voice and accent or whatever you call it, but they just would shorten
Interesting.
words. And so, and then run them together.
Yeah.
And we kind of needed important information because we're doing like DA surgeries and we're doing C-sections and different, down cows. And it'd be like, and you're like, what? And we could never, I mean, I think by the end of 3 years, I started to understand one of them. But it was this whole dialect that I was like, this isn't a real language. Like, what are they speaking? But they would go off together, the 2 of them, and, as brothers, and they would just ramble like forever. And they knew exactly what they were saying. But it was a new one for me.
There was that lady that it was Dr. Brett. I was with him.
Okay.
And I forget, he probably knows better, but she called in and she said something. There was an argument. The bullet bounced off the ice and it's in the horse. And he was like, okay. And they trailered the thing to us.
Oh, yeah. I remember searching for that bullet for like
it on
hours.
ultrasound. Yeah. And it came up in my memories. So it's funny that because this made me think of it, but it came up in my memories not too long ago. And he's just like holding this like little bullet.
Bullets don't ricochet off ice.
Yeah.
No.
We were like,
it was like,
what really happened in that barn?
Yeah.
Because a bullet ricocheting off ice and
I don't believe
Right.
you, lady.
into the abdomen.
There's an argument.
Yes.
There was something.
Something
And it was
happened
ventral
here.
midline, and luckily for the horses, like external or ventral to the linea, but it was
Oh, wow.
in the sub-Q tissues. And holy cow, was that like, you would think you'd just be able to feel it.
Yeah.
But God, we had to
No.
like follow
We were
it
there
forever with
later that night,
ultrasound.
too.
And it was forever. Yeah.
It's dark.
And it probably would have been fine. I don't know.
Yeah.
Probably just
Who
leave it.
knows? But it's more rewarding to get the
I
bullet.
can't tell you the number of times that when I was doing small animal, people, and well, we were in Wisconsin, so it was a little more rural, but things would get shot, and then they'd bring them in and be like, I want the bullet so I can turn it in. And I was like, what? The police are not going to, like, your feral cat, they're not going to
Investigate your bullet.
trace the bullet.
No.
But the
No.
first 2 times Brett and I fell for that, probably on separate occasions, and we're like, sure, we'll get it for you.
And then that was an adventure.
And like an hour and a half later, you're like, oh, one of them I
This
remember was like
sucks.
lodged in the vertebral column.
Oh, man.
And you're like, why did I do that? But we were like brand new, and you do what you think
You
should.
do?
I can do that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, no
We're like,
problem.
we'll take enough x-rays, and even orthogonal views really didn't help.
Even orthogonal views. Look at you
You
go.
just keep
I just-
digging. It was awful.
No,
So
I never had
bad.
any, except, I do a lot more work, like, in rural spots. And I have an East Coast vet. She works in Wyoming now. And it was so funny. It's a mixed animal practice, and similar thing. She's like, the front desk comes running back to her and is like, we've got a dog from a possible, like wild animal attack or another dog attack or whatever. They want to bring it in. But they tried, the dog's already sutured. They just want you to check to see if it's a good job. And the vet's like, the number of times I get that call to like check someone's suture job, and then I have to end up redoing it and putting drains and, like, I don't know, being a vet. It's uncanny.
Why would they bring it in? The type of people that suture their own pets are usually not the kind that will bring them in.
I
Totally.
know. They just want to check it. And then, of course, it's always like,
After a
it
dog
happened
fight?
yesterday, but,
Yeah.
it
Yeah,
just-
I'm sure.
And
I'm
it
sure it was very
smells.
recent.
Yeah,
When
and
it
I was like, well,
smells.
how do you navigate that conversation? And she's like, oh, I just usually say, like, I just added a few, here or there. And, like, she was
Take
so
out their
good about it.
fishing line.
The same ones that are like, and while you're working on them, can you do a nail trim? because
Yes,
if you're
every
already
time.
there,
Anal
would be
glands.
great.
Can you take a peek?
Yeah, anal glands, nails, just add that on.
Oh my God.
Oh gosh, but I was like, seriously, this is like a routine call, and she goes, oh yeah, oh yeah,
Wow.
and I'm like, the wild animal attack or like checking suture? And she goes, no, checking
Right.
suture. I'm like,
Checking suture. Wow.
Jeez.
who knows?
Wow.
Who knows?
Well,
Wild.
East Coast to Wyoming is a major transition
That's
if you're
huge.
in vet med.
Yeah,
I mean, in all
100%.
other respects as well. But like
yeah.
Wyoming.
I know
yeah,
she's fantastic. I mean, she has just really, thrived out there. But it is funny. She's like, yeah, you just, nothing
you just
phases me now.
Yeah, it's
Yeah.
true. It's true. You're never surprised,
Desensitizing.
I guess.
Yeah.
That's
No,
at that
it's
stage.
pretty amazing. Like overall as a profession, like we are probably to a fault, like how game we are, for these certain scenarios where you're just like, well, all right, let's give it a go.
You just try. Yeah.
Exactly. Might as well just figure it
You can-
out, I guess.
You can try.
Yeah.
Yeah.
What else are you
I
going to
don't
do?
know.
You're there, so might as well just jump in and
Well,
Right.
sometimes the client gives you no other option too. I mean, I've probably learned the most on some of the cases where referral is not an option.
Absolutely.
And one of them was like kind of like your first weekend on call in Aiken. I was first weekend on call, so I had done an equine internship. I had tracked large in school at CSU, and then literally first weekend on call as a small animal veterinarian. Air quotes because I was not. This Springer Spaniel comes in and she's had green vaginal discharge now for 3 hours. The last puppy was 3.5 hours ago and has been straining, and she still has 4 more puppies in there. And it was only the first that came out like vaginally and easily. And she's had several litters, but they bring her in and they're breeders and they're like, well, we're not going anywhere else. And we're only 25 minutes from our emergency referral center, but we're a small town. So we saw all our own emergencies still. And holy cow, if I wasn't just like, what? Like, I'm not going to do the surgery here. Like, I don't have a ton of staff and all that. And he's like, well, we're not leaving. And obviously, in my mind, I'm like, well, the puppies will die. She'll die. All this stuff. Right. So I was like, okay. So we take her back, and I had done half a spay at CSU. And when you have a pregnant uterus, that, and like 5, I think we saved, or there was only 4 puppies left and we saved them all. And she ended up doing fine, but shit, after an equine internship, I was for like 3 nights, I couldn't sleep with thinking that she had peritonitis, because horses always get peritonitis. You go any abdominal surgery in a horse, it's going to be a long road. Dogs and small animal are so resilient, and, they just wake up and go on about their deal. And she was fine. And and then funny enough, they didn't pay their bill for like 9 months or something until like the next litter came in. But I remember as like a new associate being like, oh, I did such a good job, like a week later when it was still alive.
Yeah.
Oh my, and being so excited. And then I of course like tracked it, and they just never paid it until the next emergency came up.
That tracks. That tracks.
And that's always so tough. Like that was one of the things that was a huge transition for me coming, out of private practice in Kentucky to, more normal private practice in South Carolina, was tracking down, money and having the money talk. And that you really have to develop the skill set for that, because like if you don't get the monies, your boss
it doesn't matter.
And
I was not
like,
equipped for the
horse.
Correct. I was not equipped for the billing stuff.
People are very interesting when it comes to
money.
Yeah, money and finance. That's when I worked at one of the equine practices, I was patient care coordinator. So I did all like invoicing, reviewing, surgical invoicing, reviewing, and all of that. But like the large colic bills, that was me. I got to be like, hello, let's review everything today, and how, you have to have the whole
That's the price
rapport.
Of
I used to call them, that was a Volvo that left today, and the Volkswagen Beetle is leaving. Like it all, so people are interesting, but I feel like a lot of people in those scenarios expect, like they know, and if they're going to put them through they kind of horse people understand, but the smaller,
well,
like
that's because you guys do a good job with estimates and all that, and it's different now. I feel like all the management softwares have gotten better about estimates
Yes.
and getting them signed and doing all that
Totally.
stuff.
Yeah.
And really it's your front desk staff if you have it. It's just that when you're like rural and mixed animal, you don't always have that stuff. And you're kind of a one-stop shop, you know?
Yeah, and paper invoicing too. Like I still wrote everything by hand.
Carbon copies.
Yeah.
Who does carbon copies?
Yeah. It was a
thing.
time to be alive. But you remembered what you did. Like there was something about like that connection. And I would get in front of the computer after seeing like a bajillion horses, and I'm like, I don't remember.
I can't remember. But if you write it down,
it sticks.
That's how I retain things. Yeah.
Yeah. So I was notorious for being like the worst at the practice software. So so like now that I'm on this side, I'm like, make your habits, right? Like those who cannot do coach, like that's me.
Yes.
I love it.
Get paid.
It's so sad,
you get paid.
Yeah, exactly. No, it's so true. And I think you hit on a really cool point too, that, you know, I love being on this side is like when you are in those rural practices and faced with those cases where you're like SOS, you know, and you don't always have someone to call. It's been really nice to be on that side, and people will, you know, colleagues will ask like, okay, well, I have this, and this. Did you ever see it? And I'm like, flattered. You think I had that? No, but I know somebody who can help you. And like you can connect, you know, vets that way. But otherwise, you know, maybe never would have. I mean, it's a small world, don't get me wrong, but it has been really nice to like connect people for that, because especially in rural practice, or I've found out West, like equine practice, solo practitioners, ambulatory, like we're all faced with a lot of the similar challenges. But, you know, if we can connect each other, it's pretty amazing what can happen. And having something like this where you can, you know, share these stories, and you're like, does anybody else, like anyone else experience these crazy calls where you don't know what somebody wants? Like,
is it just me?
It is not just you. It's
or
nice
like when
to
someone
know other
offers
people
you
are out
dinner,
there doing the same thing.
100%. Or like when a client, you know, you're out there and they're like, well, we made, you know, dinner. Do you want some Vienna sausages and, you know, I don't know, some crazy combination of sauerkraut and crackers? And you're like,
I just ate. I'm good.
No,
we were at a call once, and this guy was like, you know, pretty isolated. Like he had a fair bit of land, and we had finished up. We were going back to the truck. And he was like, "Hey, do you guys want anything out of the freezer?" I don't know if you remember this.
No, freezer.
Yeah, and he goes into his he's like, "Come on in," and we're like, "Oh, okay." And you don't really like go into people's houses, right? As much. So walking, you know, to the edge of the garage was enough. And he opens his freezer. He's like, I shot all this deer right in my front yard, right from that porch right there. And, you know, you could just take some. You should just, and we're like, thank you. Thank you so much.
Did you take some? Did you take some steaks?
I took it. I didn't take it back
Trish
to my house.
Is like,
I might have. Well, I think I'm more like default polite too. I'm like, thank you so much.
She's so polite.
Thank you so much. Thank you. And then I go to my friends. I'm like, would you like some deer that this client gave me today? Would you like a deer meat? I'm good. But if you guys want some, pass it along.
I love that. How did you guys handle like middle of the night or being on the road all day and you got to go to the bathroom and you're just like, there's nowhere in the barn.
Chelsea?
Like you're in the middle of nowhere.
This is what has massively changed is barn cameras. I used to just like
in a stall.
You'd pee in a stall, you know. But now every stall has not every stall, but I have to watch because otherwise I'm like just pop a squat outside because you don't have many options and you're out all the time. So I'll do like rural road whatever. But I did one of my good clients a couple months ago. I literally went out of the barn because he doesn't have a bathroom there, and it's a really nice place. I don't know why he doesn't, but. I go out to like where the yearlings are kept and there's 2 sheds and they're kind of sandwiched, but at an angle. So there's a little slot. And I was like, oh, good. It's protected like from all areas and it's not facing the barn. And I popped a squat and I look up and there's a fucking camera right there midstream.
And it's probably like on his phone, motion detected.
Alerts him. She's there. Where's Chelsea? Oh no.
I was just dying
Midstream. I thought you
Oh.
were going to be like, there's a snake on the ground, or like,
Oh,
that
that would have
seems
been
like a
fine.
good area, right?
That would have been
That would have
fine.
been way better.
I literally
Take a snake over a camera.
just when you're like so like in such a compromised position and you're like, oh my god,
Oh my
like, why is there a camera up here?
And then at that point, you might as well just,
I had to finish.
up and,
I had to finish.
just.
Oh no.
Yeah.
Yeah. What's done is done.
It's done. He knows now.
It happened.
I did once tell him I loved him accidentally. So we're pretty close.
Clearly.
Like picking up my kid and we were getting off the phone. I don't even tell my husband every time we talk, like, I love you, getting off the phone. I don't know where it came from. But he didn't let me live it down. So it's still a thing. But this was like 5 years ago. I was picking up my young kid. And it was like, he was coming out the door. So I had to get off. And I was like, I gotta go. Okay, love you. Bye. And he freaking calls me back like not too long after. And he's like, did you just say you love me? And I was like, no, no, I don't think so.
No.
And he's like, I
No.
think you did. And I'm like, no.
He's like, you love me.
It's like super nice guy. But I
Oh,
just was like,
that's amazing.
okay, that just made it weird. Like it was fine before, but
Yeah.
but yeah.
Now it's weird.
But now he's seen me.
That's
pee, so I guess it's
fantastic.
fine.
I've had that happen one time when Bryce would call my on-call phone and just like would pop up with like a 859 Kentucky number or whatever, and so you just like become a robot. And I was like, "Hey, this is Dr. Casey Cromer with blah blah blah. How can I help you or whatever?" And Bryce goes, "It's Bryce, your fiance." Like, he was so taken aback.
We
sorry.
flushed
Like,
mares together. Like, it's
Yeah.
me. Yeah.
Did that mean nothing to you?
Yeah. You don't remember our first date?
100%. And he's like, "God, you hit me with your full doctor voice, and I was terrified."
Down to business. The doctor voice is a real
You're so
a
intimidating.
real thing.
Yeah,
My mom never she always brings this up because I had my gallbladder out a few years ago.
Oh, God.
And I forget where
That's a long
my
story.
husband might have been on like a business trip or something.
He was
but
gone.
Yeah, he was gone. And I had to go to emergency room, whatever. Chelsea had to call to be an advocate for me because my mom was like, beside herself and my husband wasn't available. And she gets on the phone. She's like, this is Dr. Chelsea Ludke. And I'm speaking on behalf of Trish here and like had to help. But that doctor voice, my mom was like,
Did you
Chelsea
hear it?
was on it. Yes.
Oh, she heard it?
Yes.
Oh.
She was like, Chelsea.
Yeah.
I mean,
Chelsea was
No
the
one
one.
messes with it. Yeah.
I was
You put
kind
your
of
doctor
faking
pants
being
on and like
an
you're gonna do what
MD.
I say. Yeah, that's awesome.
Well, it was
Well, thank you
post-op
for being an
complications.
advocate.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah.
she wasn't getting like nobody was helping her.
Yeah.
So I was like, fine, I can
Screw
call.
you guys.
I'll call it.
Yeah.
I'll call. Yeah,
I'll tell you how to doctor.
that's
Yeah.
right. That's right. Follow up with your calls.
Oh gosh.
That's
Do you
awesome.
find like you're probably well more known, so you probably can't sneak away with this, but do you find like sometimes when you meet new people or you're like outside of, the Lavage setting or whatever, your inner circle, that like do you introduce yourself as a veterinarian or do you have like
No, I don't tell
Say-
anybody.
yeah, exactly.
No, because then everybody has a question.
Oh, so my
my
dog.
Yeah. Oh God. And I'm like, nope, don't
has
see
a
dogs.
mass on its ass every
Yeah.
time.
Yeah. It's
you
been there
come-
for months.
Or personally, I don't know why
Yeah.
people overshare with their vets about their own medical problems, but
Oh.
it happens
Mm,
for sure in
mhm.
small animal way more. But like, and they're just like, oh, well, maybe they'll look at this. They're a doctor, and I'm like, oh God, no, I don't tell anybody, especially my kids, like friends, parents.
Mm-hmm.
Oh
Mm.
my, they.
Mhm.
they
So what do
don't
they
know
think you
until
do?
Well, it's not until they see our trucks, and then we have signage
Mm.
everywhere.
Yeah.
So that's what gives us away.
Yeah.
Gotcha.
But no, most of our neighborhood's awesome, so they don't really bug us about that. But we make it very clear we're just for horses, and nobody has horses
Mm.
there.
True.
That's perfect.
Yes. Yeah. Yeah.
But
That's a
I like
great out.
airplanes. I don't tell anybody. I'm a vet.
No, same.
Yeah.
And it's funny, like being here, like, I just say I work in, animal health or whatever.
There you go.
And my neighbors are like, you travel a lot. And they just like give me the nod, like, government, huh? And I was
Yeah. Tell us
Secret.
what's going
Totally.
on.
like, yeah, totally.
Drop
Yeah,
the
the
knowledge.
Avian flu.
Yeah.
Yeah.
100%.
Let's talk about the avian flu. Yeah.
I don't know. And like most of the time I just say I'm a barista or something, but my mother cannot contain herself with like, I know it's just like
No.
parental joy and pride,
is.
but she'll
Aw.
just like, at a horse show, she'll be like, that's my daughter, the veterinarian. And I'm like,
Oh,
Thanks, Mom.
thanks, Mom.
Perfect. She's like, have you ever thought of having them introduce you, like when you go into the ring, as like Dr. Cassandra Cromer?
Don't
I
do
was
that.
like,
Don't do that.
Never
crossed
actually.
my mind. Never
Don't want to be
crossed my
known that way.
mind. No, just the barista girl, it's good enough for
Barista's
me.
great. Yes.
A lot of
Barista's
joy.
great. I like that.
Me too. That's awesome. Oh my God.
It's an interesting life
Well, thank
we
you
lead.
so much.
Yeah.
Thank you so much for your time today. This has been fantastic. Thanks for tuning in, and make sure you subscribe so you get all the latest updates. Unhinged and On Call isn't just a podcast. It's a lifeline for every veterinary professional barely holding it together with vet wrap and caffeine. Somewhere out there, another tech, vet, or assistant is deep in the same chaos, dodging poop, managing meltdowns, and wondering if they're the only one unraveling. You're not. Whether you're laughing, crying, or rage cleaning your truck, you've got a whole tribe behind you. You're unhinged, but never alone.